Hi everyone, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with another video in our Merry Card Making Marathon. This is number 6 out of 7, where we are mass producing unique cards using sketches. And today we will be making this adorable snowman card, and I will be showing you lots of other card ideas using this sketch. So this is the sketch. I call this the frame filler. It's basically a large outer frame with a critter or something either poking out of the frame or on front of it, and it comes from my 2023 ebook Stash Busting Card Sketches, and there is a playlist for that ebook too, so I'm going to link all of those for you down in the YouTube description box below. So to start off, I'm going to go ahead and paint our adorable snowman from our Frosty Feathers set. I have stamped him using Memento Toffee Crunch ink onto Canson 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. And I'm just using an extra small journaling tip on a waterproof Pitt Artist pen to just color his eyes and his mouth to give him a more finished look. Now I'm going to paint him using Penny Black's liquid watercolor inks. And I am just showing you the colors real quick there, but I will list all of them for you down in the YouTube description box below. I'm going to put a tiny little drop on my palette just to rejuvenate the ink that is there and have a nice concentrated dot to work from. Now I'm using the Penny Black brush set, and off to the side I have my water and a paper towel. So to begin painting him in, I'm using the color of Sky just to give him the tiniest little shadow and to give the white area of the snow a complete finished look. That color Sky is really great for that. For his nose, I am using Zinnia. And I'm going to dry those before I move on to the next areas. That way any adjacent areas won't bleed or blend into the one next to it. Now I decided I think I wanted that sky just a little bit darker, so I am going in and just putting another layer on top. And when I'm painting off camera, I am picking up the paint from the palette where it is most concentrated, that little dot that I put in there, and then putting it where I want it to be the darkest. So that is the first place that my brush touches. Then off camera, I rinse off my brush, pat it dry, and go back and blend. And you can see that I'm doing that here on his scarf, and this is the color of Treetop, a really beautiful, bold, vibrant green. So again, putting my paintbrush, picking up the most concentrated color right from the palette, putting it where I want it to be the darkest, rinsing off my brush, patting it mostly dry, and just going back and blending that. And that's how you can get that nice variation of light to dark just using one color. So keeping things very simple. And I am in love with this snowman. I think he is the cutest guy. You can use him for Christmas or for winter cards, just switching up the colors that you choose on his scarf and his hat. And I just love the size of him, his face. He's really great for this sketch, but I think you could use him in so many different ways. If you have our snowy snowman stamp, he is a classic, well loved snowman. And this guy I think is a really close, and he's great that he's similar in size. So if you've made a lot of cards with Snowy, you would probably already have some great card designs for this guy. Now, like I mentioned, we are doing mass producing cards. And so I have another video where I show my whole prep process for mass producing cards and picking out the sketches, doing all my stamping ahead of time, doing all my coloring ahead of time. This video is showing you just from beginning to end of making the card. But if you'd like to see more about that entire process, I will link that video for you down below. I have to say, this process for making Christmas cards, this is the most fun I've had making Christmas cards in a really long time. It was fun to have the new stamps and new dies, and then go back to my old favorite sketches and pull out the items from my stash to kind of make those sketches come to life. So on his hat here, I went ahead and painted the whole thing pretty much just a solid color using our cardinal. And now I am going back, I dried that, and I'm going back with it even more concentrated and putting that color wine right on top on some of the stripes. So you sort of get like a tone on tone red to dark red stripe. Then here I just pulled out the cardinal again just to add a little more shading to those. So that's kind of cardinal on top of cardinal, if that makes sense. But the darker colors are the color of wine painted on top. And I can even go back and with that wine color and just sort of darken up the lines of those stripes. And I'm even going to go in and just paint the rest. I thought, you know what, I think I like that dark. I'm just going to paint in this again. So layering up that color. So here that was the cardinal, and I started where I wanted it to be darkest, rinsed off my brush and went back to blend. And I'll go ahead and dry that. You'll see that I do pull out my heat tool often, and I just find that keeps things easier to work with. Now I'm going to put on that wine color to darken up the bottom, and I'll rinse off my brush, pat it dry, and go back and blend it. Now, if you want more information about these watercolor inks, I have a video about that linked for you down below. I don't want to bore you saying the same thing over and over, so I will link that video for you down below. Here I am again putting down that cardinal color, and I'm just, if I want to do a tone-on-tone stripe, what I typically will do is the color that's the lightest, I'm going to just paint that across the whole thing, and then I only have to go back and paint the darker stripe right on top. So I'm going to do that now. Now this is with that wine color. These two reds work beautifully together, getting those darks and those lights. And you can see on most of the snowman, I kept things very, very simple with my painting, and I'm just putting my attention and my time into the hat. So that's another tip, especially if you're making a lot of cards. You don't have to put a ton of time and attention into every single part of the image when you're coloring it, whether it's with markers or colored pencils or paints. Pick one part that you really want to focus on, and that can be sort of the star of the show, and it will look complete and finished and really kind of wow people. But this image is so cute. You could just color it very simply, and it's going to look really adorable on your cards. So now I have picked up a smaller brush. So these are all round brushes for watercoloring that are in the Penny Black brush set, and I'm just using that little brush just to go back with that cardinal again and add just a touch more shading. So I'm picking up from the palette most concentrated, putting it where I want it the darkest, rinsing off my brush, patting it dry, and going back and blending that. And when I like it, I'll just dry it and kind of freeze it how it is. Now we'll go ahead and paint his arms. I love that they aren't just plain sticks, that they have the holly and the berries on there. And that's a great way to pull just a little bit more color to the outside. And that is with the chocolate color. And then I'm just going to use that same treetop color to paint in the holly. And I will pick up the cardinal to paint the berries. So now we're ready to work on the background. So you can see I've got my frames there, and I've kind of put the snowman in where I want him to be, just to see, am I stamping this in exactly where I want to stamp it. Now this stamp is from our pine piece, and I'm mainly just using the top of this. I inked it with Evergreen Bough Distress ink, and then I misted it with water, and then I have my paintbrush handy, and I'm just going over and blending out any of those blotchy areas. I'm starting light and I can build up the color, but I really want this background to be kind of light, just complementing the snowman, not taking away from him. So again, Evergreen Bough, while it's still wet, I stamped it again. I put the ink on, misted it, and stamped it again. This is a very loose look. I am stamping onto the Canson 140-pound watercolor paper, but if you wanted to capture more of the detail of this stamp, I would recommend a smoother paper like a Bristol Smooth paper. Now I decided I wanted this to be just a touch greener, so I inked up my stamp with Memento Pistachio ink, and I'm just stamping that right on top. And you can see that just captured a little more of the detail because I didn't mist it, and it greened up that tree to sort of match the scarf of the snowman. So once that is dry, I'm going to use an ink blending tool and a foam pad, and I'm using Archival Sky Blue, and I'm just starting off of the edge of this background and working my way on in a circular motion. I wanted there to be some contrast to the frame die cut on the outside. So sort of my process for this sketch is pick a really nice frame that you want to use. You could die cut out just the center of a card panel. using like a stacker die, or like I'm doing, I'm using our double frames die. So once you have that outer frame, you can keep it white, you could make it colored if you wanted, then decide what's my focal point. That's where we did the snowman. And then for that background piece, think, what do I want in the background? Maybe it's just an embossing folder. Maybe you want to have some snowflake die cuts in the background. Or like this, what I did for my cards with this sketch this time is I wanted to pull out some of these beautiful trees and greenery and stamp that in the background. I am putting just a little touch of Toffee Crunch ink here over the top just to give it a little softer, more sort of vintage feeling to that background. And I'm just again putting a little more of that Toffee Crunch here around the corners, and that will make that frame die pop a little bit more. And then you can see I keep going back and forth with that frame just so that I position things where I want them to be on the background, like my sentiment here. This sentiment is from our Yuletide delivery, and I'm stamping it using Acorn Archival ink. I use that ink a lot for sentiments. So I love about these frames is that it's 2 frames and they layer up together. So I'm going to have him kind of peeking out from the side here. So I'm just going to use some masking tape to tape him in there and put him where I want him to be, and then trim off any excess. Again, you could use this sketch with any type of critter stamp or something more elegant like poinsettias could be poking out from the side. So this is the sort of base frame, and I'm going to position that over my stamping over my background. And my background is just a little bit bigger because this does, when you put it on your card, will leave a border around the edge, and I love that. It looks more finished for me. So I'm just trimming off any excess here from the back. And you can see off to the side there where I taped that snowman in, I can move that all as one piece now, and I've put foam tape on that piece. So he's going to be popped up a little bit, and that I think is the beauty of these layered double frames. And once I had that in there, I thought, I think he needs a little snow coming down. So I'm just using a little bit of acrylic paint. This is just white acrylic paint. I think I got it at Walmart, just a cheap white acrylic paint, and my paintbrush. You can use these penny black paintbrushes with acrylic paint. Just be sure you wash them right away afterward. And I'm just going to put a few dots of these for snow and to finish off that card, finish off his background. I love this card. I just can't get enough of this happy little snowman. Whoops, got a little paint on my hand. And then you can see I can add that panel to my note card. So here's a look at all the cards I created using this sketch. Of course, here's the one we just did together in this video. You can see all those fun layers. Those layered, they're called double frames, are so great. Here I've done another little critter and popped him in, did more background stamping, and added a die cut sentiment on there. Added lots of snow coming down too. And I have one more for you. Again, another critter, a different Christmas tree in the back, and I even added a few die cut snowflakes to the background on his card. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Here are still shots of each of those cards. I'd love to know what is your favorite. Mine is definitely the snowman. I just love him so much. But these critters are a close second. Thank you again for watching, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps our channel to grow when you do that. And thank you again for all of your kind words and comments and being a part of our Penny Black community here on YouTube. Happy stamping!